A sticky sermon has to have tension, not just because it will help people remember the message, but because identifying and pulling at the tension in a sermon, it helps your hearers care about the message, it cuts to the heart of your hearers, and it pushes your hearers, the ones listening to you, past their objections to applying the message to their lives. Now, after all, because Jesus told us that we are to make disciples through baptizing people and teaching them to obey everything that he commanded. See, we're not simply preaching for information transfer. We are preaching so that we can teach people to obey Jesus. See, tension helps us do this effectively. So you may be asking the question, what is tension? So if you're not sure what I mean by tension, just stick with me here. Tension is the word that describes the whys and the buts that come to mind consciously or subconsciously in those who are hearing the sermon. They ask these kinds of questions. Why should I care about this message? Or they say, but this doesn't seem to have anything to do with me. Why is that the interpretation you think is right? But that application of this text, it would cost me something. But what does this have to do with me anyway? Tension is also the word that describes the deep work we as preachers must do to cut through the religious cliches and cultural influence that so often flood people's minds and hearts. So we do this through distinguishing the text from wrong theology and cultural ideas that are in dissonance with the truth of the text. But not only do we distinguish the text from wrong beliefs and ideas, we also distinguish it from wrong actions. So when we identify and pull at the tension strings in a sermon, we are giving language to and bringing to light people's experiences, people's thoughts, people's objections, and people's actions. So not only will they feel heard and understood, they'll be more ready to receive God's word. So in this video, what I want to do is give you 3 types of tension in a sticky sermon. So the first type of tension in a sticky sermon is this, the tension before you get to the text. See, we don't start here in our preparation, but we do begin here in the way we design the message. Because in order to preach a sticky sermon, you must identify tension in the first few minutes. Here you're taking one of the tension points that you're going to identify from your study of the text, and you're putting it at the beginning to frame the conversation, give an angle that we're going to come to it from. Not many people like to listen to a message that is unclear in its aim. So by beginning with tension before you get to the text, you're telling people what the message is about without giving them your big idea at the outset. The result is that the people listening to you are ready to hear the truth of the text. The second type of tension in sticky sermon is the tension in the biblical text. See, tension doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from what we see in the Bible. Tension in the biblical text is anytime there is an objection or hesitation of belief related to these things, what the original recipients were hearing and dealing with, how to interpret the meaning of the text, when the truth of the text goes against something our culture has deemed good or okay, when what the text says doesn't seem to line up with our own experiences, or when the text is giving us a new way to think, live, believe, etc. If you're preaching through a narrative, there's going to often be tension present in the plot. And it's the preacher's job to identify the tension in the biblical text and pull at it. Now, before we get to the third type of tension in a sticky sermon, be sure to grab your copy of my 10-step guide to writing a sticky sermon. It's going to give you a step-by-step plan to write memorable, transformational messages every time. Just go to rookiepreacher.com/guide and grab your guide there. Now, let's dig into the third type of tension in a sticky sermon, and that is the tension in the application of the text. See, people may be tracking with you through the entire message. They see how the text deals with the problem you identified in the beginning, and they even agree with how you interpreted it. But when you begin to proclaim how this text applies to life today, there is often tension involved because of the narrative present in your people. For example, Proverbs 18:10 says, "The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous man runs into it and is safe." Where's the tension, you ask? It's in our experience. What happens when you run to the Lord, the strong tower, and you don't feel safe, or you still suffer? That's tension. And it's not only in the text, but it's in the application of the text too. So why should they reconsider? What is really happening when we run to the strong tower, the name of the Lord? See, if you identify and address the tension that's present in application, more people will take action. See, the result of putting these 3 types of tension together is a sticky sermon. In every part of the message, you'll keep your aim steady and at the heart of your hearers. That's what tension rightly used does. It helps cut through religious cliches and gets to the heart of the issue. So when you purposely give language to tension, you're giving people's objections and hesitations a voice. And when you do that, you're limiting the power of those objections and hesitations and helping them move forward into God's ways. If you want to dig deeper into what it looks like to preach a sticky sermon, then click right here and watch this video where I break down the sticky sermon structure. I'll see you there.